What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball, not just because Week 5 has been absolutely electric so far, but we have a very exciting debut on the podcast. Joining me to talk a little ball is Yahoo's own Joel Smyth. Joel, what's going on, buddy?
How you doing? Good to be here. First time on the pod, so feeling big. So excited for today.
I mean, Joel, we're throwing you in here into the absolute fire. Live Sunday recap show. So many things have happened. It's a lot to try to compute all of this stuff, but that's what we're going to try to do here on the recap show.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how the show flows for the new folks out there. First segment, these are the games we care about the most, and we have some really big time performances to talk about in those games. Plus, we start off with our boom and bust player of the week. Second segment, we go through the games we sort of care about. In the third segment, games that could have been an email. Let's waste no more time. Let's jump into it. Let's start with our boom and bust players of the week. Starting on the positive note here, Joel. Rico Dowdle subs in for Chuba Hubbard. Goes absolutely crazy against the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, he was a 12-point per game player last year when he was getting like the actual starting touches that bumped up to 14. Can't say I was expecting this. 23 carries for 206 is insane, but they basically just gave him everything that Hubbard was getting on top of what he was already getting. So he was getting that full bell cow work. This offensive line is probably still way better than people actually believe or perceive, more so, just because they are a really good offensive line, but the offense in general isn't the greatest. But we saw it even like with ETN coming in today. He was running good. Like this offense, their rushing offense is going to be good with no matter who they have in there. So Dowdle, a great start, over 200 yards on the ground. I was impressed.
Rico Dowdle's a good back, man. And I wrote about this during the during the week where I put together a piece on the top 12 run games in the NFL. Carolina was 10th. In terms of rushing success rate on their running back runs. I kind of wrote in the piece that, you know, this surprised me, honestly, just because they really haven't been in a normal game script. They've either been getting blown out or they blew out the Falcons 30-0. Well, this is a game where I thought it was going to get away from them here early on, and we're going to talk about this game here in just a moment, more in a full field perspective. But Panthers fall behind double digits, but they're able to claw back into it, and just Rico Dowdle, explosive run after explosive run. To me, Joel, I just think it was crazy that nobody wanted to sign this guy in the offseason. And now he's like, when Chuba Hubbard comes back, he'll be the starting back. And it's almost kind of unfortunate just because I think Dowdle could be a lead ball carrier for a different club.
Yeah, totally. I have plenty to go over in this game, so I'm excited to get to this one down the road. But yeah, he was an 1,000-yard rusher last year. So he's not just some nobody. He was good last year. He was amazing today. So I'm confident in him going forward. And I am a little worried about Hubbard, honestly, especially with that goal line work. Like Dowdle, if he's for real, like he's already taken some of that valuable work. This offense with Bryce Young was struggling in terms of just overall offensive scoring yards throughout the year. So if we're not rushing for 200 yards, where's the volume coming from? So with Hubbard coming back, I'm a little worried about Hubbard just because of Dowdle in this performance.
Yeah, it might be one of those, it's difficult to put the genie back in the bottle type of games from Rico Dowdle when he again takes 23 carries for 206 yards and is involved on passing downs as well. Let's get a little negative here. Our bust player of the week is Jameson Williams, who has just one catch on his only target of the day against the Cincinnati Bengals. Joel, I know this performance caught you by surprise here.
It did. I thought this was a great opportunity for him to have a ceiling game. He's had 3 floor games so far. That one amazing game in week 2, I believe. And I was thinking, all right, maybe you can have that again today against a Bengals team. They're not pressuring the quarterback too much. We can take those shots downfield, and they run up the score. So even though the Bengals started to come back, they were winning this entire game, and the passing touchdowns were there. It just didn't go to JMO. It went elsewhere. So I think Brock Wright got in there. Tesla got in there. Amon-Ra had 100 yards without a touchdown. But these touchdowns were going all over the place, but nothing to JMO this week. I was disappointed.
What's your level of concern on Jameson Williams right now? Because like you mentioned, it's been a lot of floor games so far, and he, I don't think, has been submitted to the people's panic meter a single time this year, which has been kind of surprising. I think mostly because people expect the ups and downs, but coming into this game, I was thinking, they had at a 20 air yards per target number, which was just, obnoxiously high. He's just running a lot of those vertical routes. That's going to make his production very hit or miss. But I certainly expected the 7 air yards per target. I was like, that's maybe a little bit more, kind of closer to a stability type of performance. But again, just one football goes his way. What are you going to do with that? What is your level of concern on Jameson Williams right now?
I would say decently high. Like, I was all in for week 5, but in terms of the season, not super in on him, just because what we've been promised every summer after every summer is he's going to run a more diverse route tree. We're going to use him in more diverse ways, all that sort of stuff. And like you talked about, the average at the target last year was 12 yards, already decently downfield, but nothing crazy. And then this year, I don't think it's changed too much with this one target, but it was at 21 yards. And they're at least using him creatively downfield. So it's not like I compared it to George Pickens in Pittsburgh last year. It's not like he's just lining up outside and running a go route every play. They use him in unique ways on those play action routes, those crossers over the middle that are valuable when he gets the targets. It's just really hard to predict because it's not a guy that they're going to as that first read guy or the one that is their number one in the offense. So they'll score a bunch of points. And in these matchups against the Bengals, I don't mind playing him because he can have those big days when you're expecting 30 plus from the Lions, but still extremely boom bust. So I'd rather have a decent amount of guys above him.
All right, with that, let's get into the games that we care about most here because, like I said, we have some absolutely electric performances to recap. Starting out with, the game of the day here between the Buccaneers and Seahawks. We got Buccaneers 38, Seahawks 35. Let's just open it this way here, Joel. In a game that was kind of a duel between the Reclamation 2018 draft quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, and Ohio State star wide receivers, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold combined for 720 passing yards and 6 touchdowns. Meanwhile, JSN and Emeka Egbuka combined for 15 catches, 295 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This is like the DFS game stack fever dream right here, Joel.
Yeah, you needed it.
Which honestly, you needed it. And guess what? If you played DFS today and you didn't have guys from this game, sorry about your luck. You better try next week. You're not getting any money in this one. But man, this was I didn't really see this one coming either. I thought this would be a competitive game between 2 good teams. But both these defenses I thought were playing better than this. So to see both of these quarterbacks come out and just throw heat after heat, I was so impressed. What was your just kind of first big picture takeaway of the game here?
Yeah, going back to like Egbuka and JSN, like when they were coming out of college, the thing the route, like we would expect the big plays from Marv, like Jeremiah Smith, who's in college right now, those type of receivers. But with Egbuka and JSN, it was more like, oh, they're going to be the guys that'll get those first downs for you. They'll move the chains, all that sort of stuff. JSN is leading in those big play catches this year, those 20-yard catches. And then the guy that's leading in terms of those big play touchdowns is Egbuka. Obviously, today helped too. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this volume for Egbuka, because this is kind of game after game where I'm pretty sure he had 7 targets today and 7 receptions. It's like he has that perfect catch rate. The volume still isn't incredible, but it's such valuable volume where it's like, obviously, you're not too worried. But does it have a little bit of regression going forward? Or are you confident that this just kind of keeps riding, or maybe the volume increases?
I think the volume could increase. I just don't want to overthink this, man. This is a really, really good football player in a really good offense who's winning in ways, I'm glad you highlighted this, winning in ways that we didn't maybe expect from him. And look, I loved Emeka Egbuka as a prospect. I thought he was a clear first-round player, but I thought of him as more of, like a dirty work slot receiver. And so far, he's been anything but that. He's been a true big play monster, as you mentioned. I saw the stat from Hayden Winks. Emeka Egbuka is now 3rd all-time in fantasy points through his first 5 NFL games, behind only Randy Moss and Puka Nacua. So again, I don't want to overthink this. Yeah, right. That's wild. I don't want to overthink this too much based on any sort of metric or anything, because also I think the play has matched it on film. Like, I think he's been an awesome separator against man coverage. He's so smart against zone. He is. I talked about this this week. He is uniquely good for a rookie receiver in terms of beating zone coverage, like settling in the right spots, being where he's supposed to be, not overrunning his routes. You don't typically see that with rookie wide receivers. Even JSN, who's in his 3rd year, obviously, he took a little bit of time to kind of get that down, and now we see the full-fledged results of that. Egbuka's like 5 games into his NFL career, and he's doing the damn thing. So I don't really want to overthink this. I think that he is – look, is he going to have the same – smash every single week when Mike Evans is back? Maybe not necessarily. So I guess maybe you could call him a sell high based on that. But I just think that this is a guy who is going to consistently do this because he is putting it together from a production and a film perspective.
Yeah, and I would agree. So I'm glad that you say that. I just think of like this comment that I got earlier this week of somebody asking, like, is Egbuka a sell high? And it's like, my answer was, well, I've gotten this comment 3 weeks in a row. So probably
Yeah,
not.
right.
Like at this point,
Probably
again,
not.
and I'm sure people will ask again, like, oh, is he a sell high this week because he's been 4 weeks in a row? Like, yeah, it might not be this perfect. He's probably not going to be the overall wide receiver 3, which is he is right now, but he's still going to be amazing long term. So yeah, I'm kind of on that wavelength. A lot of those big plays are coming on the outside too. So he plays a little bit in the slot there, but a lot of those big plays are coming on the outside.
I love that way of thinking about it. I'm pretty terrible about, trade analysis or when is the right time to sell or buy or whatever. I feel like if you keep saying for 5 straight weeks that this guy's a sell high, he's probably not a sell high. And if you keep saying for 5 straight weeks that this guy's a buy low, he's probably not actually a buy low. Like we're just living in what the current reality is. And the current reality for both these Ohio State receivers is awesome. And for JSN, man, just a true year 3 leap candidate to a guy that I think is right now, like saying top 10 receiver in the NFL sounds conservative, and he is a guy that is clearly an every week wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. But let's talk Seahawks here for just a second before we get back to the Bucs. Usually I like to start with who wins the game, but because we're just on the Seattle thing, this will transition us into it. I know Sam Darnold had the game-ending interception, or what ultimately allowed the Bucs to kick the game-winning field goal. It kind of bounced off somebody's helmet. He was under pressure. I don't think that was the classic Sam Darnold. I'm sure he looked like he was hard on himself afterwards. I don't know if that's necessarily the classic Sam Darnold pees down his leg in a big moment type situation, but because Darnold's just been balling out all year, man. 4 touchdowns in this game. He's the guy that is delivering all those deep vertical passes to JSN is Sam Darnold, and he's been fantastic so far.
Yeah, 10 yards per attempt, 340 yards. I don't know if you can ease my pain with Kenneth Walker at all, but that's been the big thing where he's incredible as an NFL player, but still like another one. There's multiple big runs today, and then he gets inside the 10-yard line, and they're bringing in Charbonnet. He's getting that goal line work. But the pain for me today was they already were 31st in running back target share, and we wouldn't expect that from both what we saw last year with Mike McDonald. Obviously, he's not the offensive coordinator, but even the offensive coordinator coming from New Orleans in Kubiak. He was throwing to the running backs a lot. And I know it's Kamara, but you wouldn't expect it to be 31st this year. And Charbonnet had 2 targets, Walker had 0. So it's just really tough in fantasy right now for such a good player that's just not getting used.
I mean, 10 for 86 for Kenneth Walker. Like it could be worse. It's been worse before, but without that passing game work, you kind of need him to score a touchdown. I think he's just mostly like a low end kind of boom bust running back 2, as opposed to maybe a higher end 2, which you might have drafted him as. So I don't know. To me, I'm not too worried about Kenneth Walker. I just view him as somebody that you might have to adjust some expectations for, because Zach Charbonnet is not going away. Like he is a reliable, rugged back who they like in pass protection and short yardage. So this is one of those situations, as long as both those guys are out there, this is kind of how the rotation is going to be. But at the same time, Joel, like if anything does happen to Zach Charbonnet, I think we know then Kenneth Walker goes to the moon, and vice versa as well.
Yeah, totally. And don't wish that upon anybody. But yeah, he had 1 0-yard receptions. That maybe helps him a hair in those PPR leagues. But yeah, overall, I don't know if he's scored between like 10 and 18 one time this year. It's either been like 20 points or under 10. So that's been really tough.
All right, let's go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side here, because we talked about Rico Dowdle earlier in the show, and we'll talk about him here again in just a moment. But kind of the common question we got a lot during the week was, okay, so these replacement running backs between Rachaad White, Rico Dowdle, the guys in Arizona, which way do we go here? To me, it was kind of between Rachaad White or Rico Dowdle, and the answer was yes. Whichever one you went with, you were fine. I mean, obviously Dowdle really went off, but Rachaad White led the team, 14 carries, 41 yards, 2 touchdowns, in addition to 4 receptions for 30 yards. So Rachaad White, I think, as long as Bucky Irving is out, he didn't do anything today to make them change that rotation at all.
Totally. Yeah, they have his trust. Like even when we're entering the game, it was 80 snaps to 2 in terms of White versus Sean Tucker. So he's been that starter before. they gave him all that valuable work. I talk a lot about the receiving and goal line combination for running backs, and he got all that. He got both of the goal line touches. He got basically every single route out of the running back. So 70% of the touches overall. It's amazing for Rachaad White, that fringe level RB1 as long as Bucky's out, just because his offense is so good.
Last thing on the Bucks here, Chris Godwin once again did have a full-time role, 34 routes for Egbuka to lead the team, 31 for Cade Otton, and 30 for Chris Godwin, but played a little bit more in the slot today, but still I think it's going to take a minute for him to get fully back operational. I think people were excited by the route participation, the targets last week, but to me it's going to take a little bit for Godwin to get ramped back up here. And this was, to be fair, a difficult matchup.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting too much, but yeah, 40% slot work compared to about 30% last week. So that's a little bit better. We want that to be kind of 65% like it was last season. But when he's relying on those yards after catch, that screen game out of the slot a lot, it's going to lower the expectations when he's coming off the injury, playing on the outside, and they got Shepard in there in the slot.
All right, let's get to the next game that we really care about. This is back in the early window. Broncos 21, Eagles 17. Big upset on the road for the Denver Broncos. Let's start fantasy storyline here. I think most people really care about and are tracking after RJ Harvey had a nice week against the Bengals defense, if that's what we want to call it. J.K. Dobbins, 80% of the running back carries. That's maybe not too surprising because he's been the lead back, but what shocked me, Joel, was to see Tyler Bidet ran a route on 37.2% of the dropbacks, outsnapped RJ Harvey, yet he touched the ball just one single time. So that's tough. That's going to be tough for the RJ Harvey bros out there as long as Tyler Bidet has this kind of non-touching the ball, passing down role.
Yeah, it did break my heart. I looked into it because I noticed like Harvey's been getting less and less, and we saw Dobbins get 20 carries, and I love Dobbins, but at least give me the receiving for Harvey. And yeah, Batty played 18 snaps, only had the one target, like didn't have a single carry, but still 18 snaps is 18 snaps. Harvey's not getting in that passing game role that should be what we'd expect in the past with Bo Nix and Sean Payton, pretty valuable. So I would classify myself as an RJ Harvey bro, and I'm a little sad right now. So we'll see what happens down the line. I still have hope because he's one of those guys where although he's not really being used, similar to like a Bill or maybe a Kenneth Walker, he's productive when he plays, and he's looked good at times. Last week, I wouldn't even count with the Bengals, but even in the other games, when he's on the field, he plays well. He just needs to be used a little bit more in order to actually provide some value in fantasy.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen from the J.K. Dobbins run out here is that this is the type of rushing ecosystem we should want to be involved in here. They have a good offensive line. The offense has been a little hit or miss. I think from a pass game perspective, Bo Nix has been kind of up and down so far, but nevertheless, it's still what I would call an average to above average offense when we go out over a full season sample, which is, again, what we want our fantasy backs to be attached to. So to me, if anything ever happens to Dobbins, like Harvey is still a guy we really want to be holding on to, hopefully for some more usage in the second half. But yeah, this Tyler Bidet Batty usage has definitely been a little, it's hard to track. Like there's some games where he's just completely uninvolved. Then there's some games where he pops up for this like snap share here that was a little surprising.
Yeah, for sure. Not too confident in going forward, but late end of the season, I would still say RJ Harvey is like a very worthwhile stash. But right now, obviously, not playing him anytime soon.
A guy who we are playing from this offense, Courtland Sutton, 99 yards in this game in a tough matchup against Quinyon Mitchell, who was definitely shadowing him. I mean, just so many like back shoulder passes between Courtland Sutton and Bo Nix, obviously. Just as Next Gen Stats notes here on the screen, Courtland Sutton caught 6 of 8 targets for 81 yards against Quinyon Mitchell, 3 receptions for 64 yards in the fourth quarter alone. Mitchell had previously never allowed more than 2 catches or 49 yards to receiver in an entire game. So yeah, Quinyon Mitchell has absolutely been balling. Hard to pick many corners who have played better to start this season, but Courtland Sutton has not only been good, he's been so consistent too, Joel. 61 yards in week 1, 6 yards, kind of weird, LOL, in week 2, but then 118 in week 3, 81 in week 4, and then 99 yards today. This guy's just been the most kind of boring receiver pick you could make that's just turning into really steady production as your second receiver.
Yeah, and we've seen this from the second half of last year, ever kind of since that Bo Nix breakout, like week 7 last season. He's been incredible, but specifically, like you said, like the consistency in the volume. Like 10 targets isn't out of nowhere. It's been what it's been basically week to week outside of that one bus week. I was getting ready to tweet today, Matt, about the shadow corners in quarter number 3 because all these guys, basically before Marv played, was Pickens, Sutton, and A.J. Brown. We're all getting clamped, basically. Sutton had 76 yards in the fourth quarter. I stopped typing my tweet when Pickens had his 50-yard touchdown. I'm like, all right, well, this doesn't work anymore. But then Sutton came out in the fourth quarter and had 76 receiving yards. So it makes him like a must start, in my opinion, which he's kind of been for a little bit, even after that bad game. But with Bo Nix like not really playing well, he's still like putting up wide receiver 1 numbers, going up against top corners and putting up 100 yards on him. It's been incredible. I love it.
A big part of why this is that, otherwise 9 Broncos got a target. Like, it's very spread out between everybody else. Troy Franklin, 72% route participation. So he is still holding on as that number 2 receiver. There's just not a ton of consistent volume. Evan Ingram found the end zone, but only ran a route on 49% of the dropback. So it is Courtland Sutton in the passing game, and that is about it. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles here, Joel, who lost this game, and I can guarantee you this is going to be part of the discourse this week. They caved. They listened to the outside noise. They had an 80% pass rate in this game, which is far and away their highest of the season. From weeks 1 to 4, they had a 38.7, 41.4%, 57.1%, and 44.8% passing rate. So this was a huge departure. It was actually, all right from a yards per play perspective, 5.5 yards per play, but they scored on just 25% of their drive. So that is not ideal. And ultimately, again, they come up with the first loss, not just the first loss of the season. This is the first time that when they have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley all on the field, this is the first time they've lost in the last 2 seasons. So yes, usually it's like, it might not look great, but they win the game when this group is out there. That was not the case this week. So just kind of thoughts on the Eagles passing game and what you saw today.
Yeah, and if you didn't see the game, don't let the final score fool you in terms of the game script. They were up 17-3. So it's not like they were in this run or pass heavy game script the whole time. Like, they were throwing when they were up. And it gives me some faith, honestly, in A.J. Brown, because there's lots of problems. But I even said before this week, if he continues to get the volume in this game, it's still a good sign because he's going to be shadowed by Surtain. I'm not really expecting much. And there's some issues, but he's getting the usage, which since week one, it wasn't the usage. But week 2 and on, it's been great in terms of that way. It just hasn't been productive because he's kind of solely on the outside. They're not running as much play action this year, a little less motion, lots of different stuff where the offense hasn't been as good without Kellen Moore. But if that can be fixed to an extent, A.J. Brown's still just as talented. He's still getting a decent amount of targets. I looked up this stat today where he had 8 targets in his 4th straight game right now. The only other receivers are Nakua, McMillan, and Garrett Wilson, which McMillan, interesting in there too. But there's only those 4 guys. He's one of those 4 to have 8 targets in each of the last 4 games. So that volume is still there. Do you have hope that this is going to eventually turn around in terms of better matchups ahead? It won't be this bad?
So the thing that bothers me about the A.J. Brown thing, and it's what I've been saying on the show really the last week or so, is that I'm not so sure that he's the same level of talent that we've seen the last few years. Like, I think when you watch him in isolation, I think you can see over the course of the season a step back from the player that he used to be. And to be clear, the player he used to be was number 1 among all receivers I charted last year in success rate first man coverage. So like the best of the best. But I think we've seen a pretty severely diminished version of that so far. And this is a guy who's had a lot of lower body injuries. Jeff Mueller on Twitter was pointing this out. He works with Ray over there at Destination Devi. He's a doctor. He's pointing out like this guy got his knee. He had an interview where he said he had his knee drained twice before every game last year. Like, that's just on my radar to the point that my overreaction, which I messaged somebody about today, I didn't want to put this out on Twitter. Now I'm going to say it on a show, whatever. My overreaction is like, is A.J. Brown even the best wide receiver on the Eagles right now? Like, is Devontae Smith maybe like the better player at this point? And that might be an overreaction because, like you said, this is the matchup where the number 2 receiver is supposed to go off against Denver, especially when it's man coverage and Devontae Smith's a baller against man coverage. So again, I don't want to overreact too much in that take, but I do think that the thing that bothers me is that all through all the first 5 weeks, I think A.J. Brown has just not looked all the way right. And that's before we take in all the other variables, which, the quarterback, the pass rate, the whole deal.
Yeah, that is good to know because I haven't been like AJ Brown's biggest fan in fantasy, but in terms of the usage he's
Hmm.
getting recently, it's like, oh, it's so bad right now, but he has that talent. You would think he's getting that volume. Like, does it eventually turn around where he can be a buy low? Because I feel like his perception right now is just so bad. But yeah, the
Hmm.
whole confidence in general isn't fully there, so I get that.
Yeah, there's just a part of me that wonders if he's traded midseason. Just this seems
Mm.
to be something going on here in Philadelphia. But bigger issue in Philadelphia too is their offensive line has dealt with injuries and is not playing up to the same like dominant unit that we saw previously. Broncos generated 10 of their 14 pressures and 5 of their 6 sacks when sending 4 or fewer pass rushers today against Philadelphia. That's obviously a stat from Next Gen Stats, so not good there. Let's move on to the next game here. This was in the late window. Commanders 27, Chargers 10. Jaden Daniels and the boys get a big road win in Los Angeles. And I think the one thing we can lead here with the Commanders was this the Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt breakout game? 14 carries, over 100 yards on the ground, lost a fumble, but did score 2 touchdowns and was active in the passing game as well. I don't know where you stand among the Bill Bros on social media, Joel, but I certainly think this was the week where I thought he looked like the best version of himself, clearly looked like the guy, and they treated him that way in this game, which is encouraging because as I was talking about with Boone on the previous show, this is a good rushing offense. Like this rushing offense kicks
Yeah.
ass. And if we just have one guy that can lead the charge here, that player's an every week starter in fantasy. So what was your kind of assessment of Bill coming out of this game?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty confident in him going forward in terms of that rushing game. My goal for him, or my hope, I guess is the better word, was that he was Brian Robinson 2.0. He still didn't really
Mm.
get too much receiving. He had a couple targets, but McNichols is still that receiving back there. He's only getting about like 30% or so of those routes. But Brian Robinson, he got basically all of his fantasy production on the ground. And like you said, like Jaden Daniels helps so much with that rushing game. That offensive line looks good. He's been amazing in terms of just a back. He just needed more usage entering the week. And I'm sure he still is after this game. But entering the week, he was #1 in success rate. So it's not like he's playing himself off the field as a rookie. Like he's been awesome. That rushing percentage looks a lot better than his total carries today. Like he got basically every single carry among running backs. So I like him going forward as that maybe low end RB2 with upside.
70% of the running back rushes and 45.5% of the snaps. Jeremy McNichols was 25.5%. Chris Rodriguez was 9.1. Like if Bill's going to fly, that's what needs to happen is he needs to relegate Chris Rodriguez to a pure just kind of change of pace role. It's 1 week, but this was a really encouraging sign for the rookie running back. Anything else on Washington for your end here?
Really just that. I was even like looking at the first 3 quarters. He got like the 12 of the first 13 running back carries, I believe. So something like that where he's getting the important stuff at the start of the game before it's 27-10. Besides that, though, just Debo, these last 2 games. I don't know how high you are on him, but 30% target share, better than 30% in these 2 games without McLaurin. So as long as McLaurin's out, like he's top 10 guy, it seems like he's been incredible.
I think there's some stability to him even when McLaurin gets back because he's playing so much from the slot, 40.5% slots and slot snaps today, and he just has been smoking zone coverage basically throughout his entire career. But really this season as well, and this is a very zone-heavy Chargers defense, so it's a good matchup for him in that way, but he has really played very well throughout the course of the season. So I really like what I'm seeing from
Mm-hmm.
Deebo Samuel. 47.8% of the team targets for Deebo in this game, so that is definitely big boy wide receiver stuff. On the Chargers side of it, man, oh God, it's really gotten very frustrating for the Chargers with this offensive line stuff. They have multiple starters in and out of the game today. Trey Pipkins was in and out. Mekhi Becton was out for a few plays. I'm not sure if we have any updates on those guys from an injury perspective, but that's really unfortunate. From a pass game perspective, Herbert just doesn't have the time to unleash all these wide receivers like we were hoping to see. Ladd McConkey gets in the end zone, so that's going to help out Pengate. So there is that, but still, just that passing game doesn't look like the ceiling unit that we thought from the first few weeks because of the offensive line issues.
Yeah, I think the one positive takeaway, Hampton got injured too, which is tough. I hope that isn't anything serious. But the thing that stuck out to me the most is like looking at this offense the last couple of weeks with so much pressure. Like Herbert's being pressured nearly 50% of his dropbacks. But
Mm-hmm.
Hampton, instead of they're not keeping him in to pass block, they're still sending him out on routes almost every single time. And a lot of times when Herbert is under pressure, his general tendency isn't to scramble like some of these quarterbacks. It is to just get the ball out quick. So the biggest benefactors of that would be Hampton and Ladd, and we've seen that a little bit in the numbers.
Hampton, unfortunately, it looks like he did leave the game. It went to the locker room in the fourth quarter, did not return with an ankle injury. And Daniel Popper of The Athletic reports that he was in a walking boot in the locker room after the game. So that is obviously not ideal. Man, the Chargers just every year just crushing injuries left and right. So
it's horrible.
They're up there with the 49. Yeah, they're up there with the 49ers. Obviously, Tampa Bay's had a lot of injuries this year too, but just devastating injuries for the Chargers here, which is unfortunate because this looked like one of the better offenses in the league to start this season. Let's go to our final game that we really care about here. Panthers 27, Dolphins 24. Brother, I did not think we'd be talking about the Panthers winning this game to start. Again, they fall down by double digits once again. I'm like, here we go, Panthers. Give me a freaking break with this team. But they come back mostly thanks to the work of Rico Dowdle, our boom player of the week. Rico Dowdle handled 85% of the Panthers running back runs, 83% of the touches, and that was with leaving the game with a cramp at one point. He comes up pretty lame. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. This guy's balling out, and he's about to leave the game with an injury. It was just a cramp. He came back in, continued to play well. So, yeah, I mean, we already sang Rico Dowdle's praises earlier, but wondering what you thought more in depth about this game and Rico Dowdle specifically.
Yeah, I think I'd be cramping too if I touched the ball 26 times. We're looking at the crazy stat of the day, I think, is their rushing difference. It was 239 to 19. And they still, what's even crazier, is they barely won. They outgained Miami on the ground by 220 yards and almost lost the game. So that's just insane there. But yeah, Dowdle, his usage was incredible. I would expect it to keep happening, not to this extent, but that usage, I would expect, 20 touches a game going forward as long as Hubbard's not in.
Yeah, and next week they get the Dallas Cowboys, and then they get the Jets after that. So those are two really good matchups for Rico. Revenge game for Rico Dowdle against the Cowboys, who pushed him to the side in the offseason. That is pretty spicy. Shout out to Rico Dowdle. That'll be a fun one. But, yeah, he was awesome. 0.8 yards before contact per rush, 8.1 yards after contact per rush. And you mentioned this earlier. Even when Trevor Etienne got in there, he averaged 5.5 yards per carry, had a couple nice runs as well. So he's definitely someone to stash just in case anything happens to Rico Dowdle while Chuba Hubbard is out. He might even emerge as a fantasy starter. I do think this rushing performance covered up what was another kind of disturbing start to the game for Bryce Young. Battled back. Obviously, the team won, but this was another one where he had a brutal interception. He had a fumble where, I hate to say this, but there's just like one or two moments a week, Joel, where I'm like, Bryce Young's just too small. That looked like one of those moments where Bradley Chubb just eats the ball away from him. Again, it's the Panthers' passing offense is what it is, but as long as they can run the ball, I think they can stay in scripts where Bryce can at least get the ball to Tedero McMillan to some level of confidence.
Yeah, that's what my main focus has been on McMillan, this breakout. Like, all the signs are there, and the usage has been amazing, really, since week one. Like, he's been getting the targets, like going back to like 8 targets over the last 4 weeks. McMillan is being part of that. Like, he's getting 8 targets every single game, 50% of the air yards again. So I'm just waiting on Bryce to like get back to his second half of the year form from last year, compared to he's more looking like the first half of the year Bryce from 2024. And we don't want that. But like this matchup, it was a great matchup, and McMillan wasn't horrible. He had like a solid 13, 14 points, but still, it was an amazing matchup. This secondary was injured, like everything was out in front of them for the taking, and it wasn't the greatest day.
On the other side of it, we got our first clues on what life is going to be like without Tyreek Hill for the Miami Dolphins. As you mentioned, the run game, there was nothing to speak of. Thank God Devon Achane had not just one of the best touchdown receptions you're going to see from a running back, but one of the best like touchdown catches of the day. I mean, little tiny Devon Achane mossing guys in the back of the end zone. I did not have that one on my bingo card. So if you haven't seen that play, go find it on social media or whatever. It's pretty cool. But otherwise, Jalen Waddle was, of course, the big winner without Tyreek Hill. First game without Tyreek Hill here. He had a season-high slot rate, 25%, air yard share, 51%, and that's the third highest in the last 3 seasons, by the way, for Jalen Waddle, that air yard share, and it's his highest since week 5 of 2023. And 26.5% target share, also a season high for Jalen Waddle. So, obviously, Panthers defense, not very good. Nevertheless, I think Jalen Waddle, if you were optimistic about him being a potential low-end wide receiver 1, maybe more high-end wide receiver 2, you're feeling pretty good coming out of this game, Joel.
Yeah, totally. I am. If I had him, I'd be very happy right now. Even just looking at his past production without Tyreek Hill, not counting really his rookie year, but since Tyreek Hill was traded to Miami, when Tyreek Hill has not been on the field, Jalen Waddle's targets per route jumped from about 20%, not the greatest, to 28%. And today, 27%. And that's when he's been at his best. Like, he's been dominant whenever Tyreek Hill hasn't been on the field, and even Tua missed him on a throw or two. So 6 for
Yeah.
110 and a touchdown. Like, love seeing that.
Other pass catchers in Miami, route participation wise, here real quick. Devon Achane, 85%. Nick Westbrook-Akina, 73% with 0 targets. So that's the exact type of sacrificial X receiver stuff we want to see from Nick Westbrook-Akina. Darren Waller had himself another nice game, 68% route participation. Malik Washington, 63%, but just 4 catches for 0 yards, 4.2 air yards per target, so not going to get it done there. But Darren Waller, is he looking like someone you have a lot more confidence in after this game?
Yeah. I didn't realize that Washington had 0 yards. That's kind of hilarious on 4 catches. But yeah, I was not a believer in Waller after that first week. Like, he barely played, so it's like, oh, he had 2 touchdowns, but 33-year-old tight end coming out of not being on a team last year. How good is he really going to be? And then he dominates today. So 5 targets, something incredible. But the key thing that I want to point out here is when I was looking into where they were running their routes today, it was very interesting for both Waller and Achane, because I didn't think Achane would benefit too much because of, I think the rushing might not be as good with Tyreek Hill to separating the field. But they lined them both up as a receiver a decent amount of time, and mainly on that last drive for Achane, where he had 40% of his routes as a receiver today, most of that coming in later on in the game. But 5 of his 7 targets came as a receiver. So he only had 2 targets as an actual running back lining up in the backfield. He was being targeted as a receiver a lot of times. And similar for Waller, like, he's listed as a tight end. He played 27% of the snaps lined up as tight end. He was mainly either out wide or in the slot a decent amount. So that's good
Right.
for both of them, I think.
Yeah, that definitely helps them kind of have, I think, more stable floors from a fantasy perspective. But also, again, just this is one of the more dynamic offense. They're going to blur the lines of what's a slot, what's a wide receiver. They actually do. They're one of the few teams that talk about let's get the running back involved at not the running back position, and they actually do it. Usually it's just a talking point in the offseason. They actually get it done. So I expect to see more and more of that without Tyreek Hill in the mix. All right, that does it for the games we care about most. Now let's get into the games that we sort of care about, starting with Saints 26, Giants 14. On the Saints side here, Joel, my question to you is, has Kendre Miller quietly made this a committee backfield? 55.6% of the running back carries for Kendre Miller today over Alvin Kamara, 11 opportunities to 14 for Kamara, who is obviously still involved in the passing game.
Yeah, I think totally. I think it's hurting Kamara a lot, actually, just because we've seen these touches for Miller increase basically every single week. This is the first time where he's had more rushing attempts than Kamara. So that was what was kind of helping Kamara overall, was he was at least still getting 60 to 70% of those rushing attempts, even though he wasn't getting those targets. So today he got 6 targets. It was a little bit better, but not super valuable. It's a little less of those design screens and really designing good work for Kamara out of the backfield. So nothing super special there. So Miller eating into what was the #1 volume in the NFL last year among running backs, and Alvin Kamara, when he drops down from first to like 20th, it is a big kind of gap to make up.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see the talk around the Saints. You know, Nick Underhill's reported this, that teams are calling, trying to get some veterans off their team. And Kamara is definitely somebody that I think a team like the Bears, a team like the Chiefs could potentially make use of. And if Kendre Miller continues to play well, you know, like this, I think there's a chance that he could end up just kind of incentivizing them to get out of the Alvin Kamara contract as they look to actually rebuild going forward. But then again, there's other talk that Kamara does not want to go anywhere else. He wants to continue to play for the Saints team. So we'll see how that situation plays out. Regardless, we keep talking about Kendre Miller because I think you got to park him on the end of your bench and just see what happens. Otherwise, for the Saints here, Rashid Shaheed scored the long touchdown. Meanwhile, Olave just continues to get a ton of volume in the quick game. 10 targets per game, 4 of 5 games with fewer than 8 air yards per target. He's had like multiple games with 7 or more catches and under 60 receiving yards, Joel.
Yeah, it's how he wants to do it this year. Maybe not how he wants to, but it's how it's going to happen. But today, actually, he had his first 2 catches of 15 yards or more multiple times. Hasn't
There we
happened this
go.
season yet, but he had 2 catches that both went over 15 yards. So I was proud of him for that. 11 targets. So it's going to keep on happening.
On the Giants side of things, I don't want to be too harsh, but I feel like this game kind of gives us permission to not care that much about the Giants passing game for a while. Like, oh, is it Wan'Dale Robinson? Is it Darius Slayton? Well, it's Jackson Dart averaging 3.8 adjusted yards per attempt in this game, which is a bottom 5 mark in week 5. Kind of the lone bright spot here was Theo Johnson. 78% route participation, 7 targets, and 2 touchdowns. So any thoughts on the Giants here in what might be like their last quote easy matchup in a while here, Joel?
Yeah, it's all going to the running backs and tight ends. I think we expect this a little bit. We kind of hope Wan'Dale would be a little bit more involved out of the slot, but because they're just going to be running so much and it's a lot more just inside. So Dart, he was actually throwing downfield to those receivers sometimes, but it just wasn't very accurate. He had 274 air yards to receivers, so that's good, but it turned into 68 receiving yards. So 274 to 68, that's a little bit tougher.
Not a good
He
ratio.
only had 4% of those design carries, so that's a little bit lower than what we saw last week, but still scrambled 5 times. I don't know how many games they'll have 40 passing attempts in this team, so a lot of that was just because they're playing the Saints and had lots of different plays. Still a decent amount of rushing for Scatterboo and everything like that, but yeah, wouldn't expect too much better going forward.
Next game we're going to talk through here, Texans 44, Ravens 10. And the only reason, honestly, that this is a game that we sort of care about is, I mean, because the Ravens are just in such free fall, that this actually allowed the Texans offense to have a really strong performance here. CJ Stroud's 70% success rate in this game was the best mark of the slate in week 5 heading into the late game. So I haven't checked back in on that, but 70%, not only is that the best of the slate, it's also the best that he's had since the start of last season. His 143.9 passer rating is also the best mark since the start of the 2024 NFL season. So I know the Ravens defense is abysmal, but it was just nice to see this version of CJ Stroud, Joel, because it has been a minute since we have seen it.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. Ravens defense definitely helps him out there. My one concern, I don't know how concerned you are on Nico on screen right now, but just looking back from last year, and up until week 16 last year, there's a couple games of injuries, but up until then, he had about 9.5 targets per game, nearly 10 targets a game. He's had 7 games since week 16 last year, and he's had 6 or fewer targets in 5 of those 7 games. So you went from like 10 targets a game to now most of his games landing like 5 or 6 targets a game and another one today. Is that something that we should be scared of going forward? I feel like there's been the volume in games where like the last 2 weeks he's had like 9 and 11. But Ravens, you would expect a really big day from him, and it helped because he got the touchdown against the Ravens, but still only 5 targets in a game where Stroud did throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, obviously it's a weird game script, right? You know, at the end of the first half it was 24-3, and it didn't feel like that. On the flip side of it, I mean, Cooper Rush was just, we'll get to that in just a second. Obviously, there was no fight back from the Ravens offense on the other side of it, but still in the first 2 quarters, you know, he's on the field for 79% of the routes, and he has a 41% air yard share, but only an 18% target share, does Nico Collins. So I don't want to like totally hand wave away the concerns here. This is just obviously a weird game, and it's been a little bit of a, I'm not my concern level on the Texans offense does not go down that much based on this game. So I do think I have some ecosystem concerns overall with the Texans, and, you know, Nico Collins, I still think will end up being, I think he'll still end up being a wide receiver 1 in fantasy, or at least close to it. Not somebody that is crushing you, but the ceiling of him maybe being like the wide receiver 1 overall, like the targets have got to come up for him to get there. Cause really, as you mentioned, it just hasn't been there. And it's, I think, a lot of the ways that I've pointed out where they haven't gotten him on just like quick, easy looks, like, and they're not hitting those passes over the middle of the field like they once did. I just think the offensive coordinator has been a downgrade so far. The pass protection plans have not gotten any better. Stroud is still trying to find himself from like a controlling things at the line of scrimmage. So hopefully this is a sign of positive momentum for Houston. I just don't know how much to take away from it because of what the Ravens are defensively right now.
Yeah, I kind of want him to be like Courtland Sutton, actually. Getting to like close at 10 targets a game, but a lot of it is because Stroud targets him so much in the red zone and like even inside the 5-yard line, like he's just constantly going to Nico. That's the hope, is he does just like put up a ridiculous amount of touchdowns, 10 plus, like Sutton has done in the past, and he's on track for this year. So I'm hoping that for Nico going forward is that's just kind of like his role as the clear wide receiver 1, even though it's not as clean as maybe 1.
A little bit of a rug pull in the Texans backfield. Woody Marks did not take this backfield over after a really promising showing in week 4 in the first half. So again, this is 24-3. Like this wasn't, crazy or anything like that. Nick Chubb, 61.5% of the running back touches. Woody Marks, 31%. So it looked like he was taking this job over, Joel. That did not happen here in week 5.
Yeah, I was trying to preach some sort of caution on the waivers this week because waivers, it hasn't been very good this year. And Woody Marks was kind of that one like exciting guy. He's been really good as an NFL back, but there's so many problems in Houston, like you talked about. One of those just being the offensive line. So it was one of those for me where it's like, hey, he's going to have to get 70% of these touches, and it's probably going to have to be against bad defenses. So that's where I was fine with playing him this week because it was Baltimore, and we saw what happened. But he wasn't getting the touches. So that's just like a big problem where he needs to basically have that locked in for me to be confident in him being like a flex play. So without that locked in and all the other problems, it does make me really worried. Like Chubb got 2 out of 3 goal line carries. He only had 37% of the running back touches, about 50% of snaps. So it just wasn't good enough for me.
Nope, we're going to need a lot more than that to consider him anything more than just like a bench hold in fantasy. So again, this is one of the more brutal rug pulls of the week. Definitely thought this was like, all right, the rookies are ascending. Jalen Noel actually caught a touchdown in this game. But again, we just don't know how to take we don't know what to take from that because this was such a weird blowout. Because on the other side of it, the Ravens, not only is their defense cooked, but not a great showing from their offense here in this game. Cooper Rush, to his credit, was efficient down to down. His success rate was solid. He completed 70% of his passes, but 3 interceptions in this game. Obviously, it's a tough defensive matchup on the other side of it. What's your level of concern about what's going on the Ravens offense? Like put the defense aside for a second. Like Cooper Rush leading this Ravens offense. How does that make you feel, Joel?
Not good. Definitely not good. Like when we're looking at Lamar Jackson, he does so much for Derrick Henry and his efficiency and is opening up that run game. Their yards before contact every single year is incredible just because of Lamar and the threat of him running in those designed runs, that read option game. It pulls those ends away and gives Henry those lanes to run through. And if you take that away, it's just a completely different offensive system. And they still have some problems on the offensive line. Then the problems really start to manifest into like more than just things that you can make up with Lamar. So when you don't have the volume like you talked about, that's when it's a concern. So that was the hope for me entering the game, is like, all right, maybe they just go super run heavy and it's a close game and we can get Derrick Henry 25, 20 carries, that sort of thing. But with the defense, then you add in another problem.
Yeah, a lot of problems for the Baltimore Ravens right now, and I just don't know when that's going to recover. This is a brutal operation for the Baltimore Ravens right now. Last game here that we sort of care about, Titans 22, Cardinals 21. This was a wild game. I don't know how to describe it really in words here, but let's start on the Titans side of things where, well, I guess we kind of have to mention that Amari DiMercato commits the goal line sin in this game where he is running clear for a breakaway 70-plus yard touchdown to the point where it's going to be like, oh, all 3 of the Cardinals' backup running backs scored a touchdown because Michael Carter found the end zone earlier. Zonovan Bam Knight found the end zone, of course, and then DiMercato looked like he was streaking his way down there. And then at the goal line, I mean, number one, he slows down, which was bizarre in of itself. And then he's not even close really to that end zone. He's close, but not close enough.
Not close enough.
Like, get in that thing before you casually flip the ball out. So, and then from that moment on, the Titans make this wild comeback where they score a touchdown. They score a very weird touchdown on a play where Cam Ward throws an interception. The defender then fumbles it, and then Tyler Lockett recovers it in the end zone for a touchdown. And then the next drive, the drive after that, the Titans kick the game-winning field goal for Brian Callahan's first win this season, Cam Ward's first win in the NFL, and I mean an embarrassing loss for the Arizona Cardinals. So Titans take a bow on what probably has to be the weirdest win of the football season so far.
Oh, totally. And good for Cam Ward. Good for Calvin Ridley. His first game where he's getting a good amount of volume and was productive with it. That's kind of what we hoped in the offseason. In terms of DeMarcado, that was like one of his only touches too. So that was what made it sad for me is they didn't really give him the ball the entire game. It was Carter. He had about 75% of those running back touches. And then Bam Knight kind of out of nowhere got the goal line carry, the touchdown. DeMarcado was nowhere to be found. Then they put him in and he produces, and it all just kind of went away and blows him the game. I don't know if they're going to give him any more opportunities after that, but we'll see.
So on the Calvin Ridley thing, I swear to God, this is exactly what happened last year when we on this podcast put Calvin Ridley into the coping corner after this is how he started last season. 3 for 50, 4 for 77, 1 for 9, 1 for 5. Straight up 8 targets, 0 catches in week 6, and then 3 for 42 before, again, I swear to God, this was exactly when we put him in the coping corner on the people's panic meter, say like, hey, no more panic on Calvin Ridley. It's just not going to happen. 10 for 143 against the Lions in week 8 last year. Again, this past week, we put him in the coping corner. He's got an injury. He's playing on fewer routes, whatever. Okay, he comes back, leads the team in routes today, goes 5 for 131 against the Arizona Cardinals. Like the Calvin Ridley coaster has been it's been quite a ride so far with the Tennessee Titans. So what are we doing with this performance here, Joel?
I hope it's a sign for the future. Like we see this sometimes with rookie quarterbacks, and especially with the defense like the Titans. You can get in this volume, and I wish I'll only hype myself up and I can tear myself down too. But this offseason, I was like pretty high on Calvin Ridley to an extent, or like liked him. But I kind of said, like, hey, these first 4 weeks are horrible schedule-wise. He's getting shadow corner after shadow corner. He's getting Surtain week 1. Don't even look at the box score. And then we got to week 4, and I'm like, Calvin really sucks. I guess I was wrong. I didn't even listen to myself. I was like, I should ignore the first 4 weeks. Like, you're drafting him for later when Cam Ward can come around, gets the volume, and now definitely health is a factor there too. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of hope here. There's a lot of hope. Ian Manor has been solid, but Calvin Ridley, I would say, is still like another level. 5 catches for 130. Yeah. Like, you get this scrambling quarterback. There's lots of playmaking potential. So it doesn't have to be a ton of catches. It can be like this and be somewhat consistent that way.
I agree with your thoughts on Alec Manor. Like, he's been solid, but to me, he looks like best case Romeo Doubs type player. Nothing that's like shut the door on Calvin Ridley remaining the wide receiver 1. And I'm with you that I will only hype myself up when I can tear myself down, because in one of my group chats, my friends have just been beaten me to death with the Calvin Ridley stuff. Like, oh yeah, my friend Ryan today, worst take by the fantasy football analyst world I've ever seen was Calvin Ridley. One of my friends is, he still play football. I don't respond all day. And then literally right before we hop on this pod, I text back, like, looks like he still plays football to the tune of getting 131 yards. Interesting. So I didn't play Calvin. I didn't play Calvin Ridley anywhere, but I'm also hopeful that, like Joel said, the schedule from here on out is much easier. So check your waiver wires for Ridley, see if he's out there. On the Cardinals side, this is a horrible, horrible loss for them to take at home. Like we said, the mistakes were there. The good news is for fantasy, Michael Carter, if you had to start him, he got the touchdown right away. That makes you feel pretty good. 18 carries for him. The Cardinals' run game still stinks. He had a long run of 7 yards in this one. There's not a lot going on there, but he did find his way to the end zone if you had to start him. Marvin Harrison Jr. has a 43-yard reception, big badass catch to start, but of course, like, that ends the game with 5 targets. So the Cardinals are the Cardinals, man. Yeah. Nothing is changing over there.
Should have been a touchdown. I have my hopes up early. He's looked better and he's making plays, and they're at least using him a little bit different. But again, not passing the ball enough, and it's not going to receivers. Like, the receiver target share for Arizona is, I think, the lowest in the NFL still. So it's not looking the greatest. Yeah. It's not just Marv. The wide receiver 2 for Arizona probably still has under 50 receiving yards at this point. So it's just not good overall.
No, it is not. But at least that was good to see him come out and have a couple of sick plays in this game. Like that's what we want to see from Marv, because it's not happening with it. Like from a fantasy standpoint, it's not happening with this group. I think they all need to just get away from each other. But it's good to see from a confidence level that he can at least make those plays. That was at least nice to see. All right, that is going to do it for the games we sort of care about. Now let's wrap it up with the games that could have been an email. We've got some big time email games to go through here, Joel. Again, we're just going to rapid fire through these ones here, starting with Cowboys 37, Jets 22. My kind of one note summary on this game is everyone we want to hit for the Dallas Cowboys. Meanwhile, the Jets, who are super embarrassing right now, 0-5 and bad vibes, just a lot of ugh with the Jets right now. They got it done in garbage time. So from a fantasy standpoint,
yeah, they did. Yeah, 8 targets in the second half for Garrett Wilson, 7 second half receptions for Mason Taylor, 39 routes. I think that was second most still. He led the tight ends in targets today with 12 total. So it's ugly. It's not going to look good. But even Fields, like you wouldn't expect him to be throwing too much because of the game script. They're allowing it. He dropped back 53 times today. So you might have to wait for the second half to be happy. But most of the times they're making you happy right now.
Hey, it's something. Mason Taylor, the rookie tight end for the New York Jets, the last 2 weeks, 19 targets, most on the team, 14 catches, 132 yards, and an 81% route participation. So he is definitely somebody that should be rostered right now. They need him to happen, and he is happening. So that is good to see. All right, next game that could have been an email, Vikings 21, Browns 17. The Vikings avoid an international disaster over there in London. So good for them. They get a late win, but they leave this game with more offensive line questions. Meanwhile, the Browns, all that matters is, I know this stinks for Browns fans and for players on the team, but they got flashes from the rookie class, which ultimately that's what this season is all about.
Yeah, the tight ends hopefully can be back. We saw Fanning get in the end zone, but more importantly, Njoku, 9 targets, so it's a little bit there. He's got that potential. Scored a touchdown too, so love that for them. Do we have any confidence in Mason? He's not getting the receiving, but after that Scott fumble, he was getting a lot less work after he fumbled. But after the Scott fumble, 9 out of 10 of those running back touches. But my worry mainly is he's on bye next week, and then the schedule after that's pretty brutal.
Yeah, this is a tough matchup too, so it was never going to be like he was going to come out here and smoke this one. Yeah. So you kind of had to get him into the end zone, which is all that matters here. It is definitely tough sledding. He is someone I maybe would consider like a sell high candidate just because he has put the production in the box score for the most part, including that one big week 3 game. And, Ryan Kelly's now on IR with a concussion. Christian Darrisaw had a couple of moments in this game where he looked to be banged up. We'll look for reports on that throughout the course of the week. Obviously, Brian O'Neill. This offensive line is a mass unit of what it's supposed to be, and that was kind of the thesis of the Jordan Mason play in this season. So I agree. That's definitely a concern for me. I imagine I don't think we'll see JJ McCarthy get benched for Carson Wentz based on how he's played so far. Like I
hope
think
not.
That's enough of that already. Yeah. This Vikings team's not, people still pitch them as, well, yeah, they'll keep the veteran in there because they're this team's not a contender. Like they're not good enough. They're not as good enough a run defense as they need to be, and the offensive line injuries are a problem. So I think we can let go of that dream. Another dream that people might need to let go of is the Geno Smith dream because, woof, bro. The Raiders are embarrassing. Like the Colts absolutely shred them in this game. Everybody gets involved on the Colts offense. JT has his second 3-touchdown game of the season. They truly had no answers in this game for the Colts offense, did the Raiders defense. And even worse than that, like Geno Smith throws a day one, like rookie mistake interception that almost goes for a pick 6 here. My question to you, Joel, and I asked this of Jason Jung, our one of our producers here, who's a Raiders fan, unfortunately. I was like, bro, are they worse than last year? And I'm sorry for Jung too. He's a great guy and very talented at his job, but just pick the bad football team. What are you going to do, buddy? It happens. Are the Raiders worse than they were last year, Joel?
I don't know if I'd go that far. They got some hope. I hope Geno Smith turns it around, but it has been bad. Like this was hopefully. This was like Jacoby's game. This was Jacoby's game. Like they're injured very badly even today, their backup slot corner got injured. So Jacoby is going up against the 3rd string slot corner which is probably, like their fourth corner in general. But still, great matchup. No Brock Bowers, no Michael Mayer. Like, he's set up and still can't do anything because mainly, obviously, Geno Smith. The one positive I would say is at least Genty's getting some receiving now. He had 7 targets, a 20% target share. So that was second to only Achane today, I believe, at least at one point today. So at least have some hope for Genty there with the talent that he brings.
Obviously, no Brock Bowers in this game. We'll continue to track how that situation unfolds. Our final game here of week 5, Lions 37, Bengals 24. Pretty cool day for David Montgomery, who is a homecoming game for him. He's from the area. He actually played high school quarterback in the Cincinnati area. So the Lions just do this stuff for their players, and I think it's pretty sick. They designed a play where he got to throw a touchdown to one of the backup tight ends. His sister, who was severely injured in a car accident over a year ago, was also in attendance. The accident left her paralyzed from the neck down. So this was her first chance to see him perform live. They showed some shots of her, even like Bengals fans giving her high fives. Like that was pretty sick to see. And on this day too, because Montgomery also popped in a rushing touchdown, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery tied Emmitt Smith and Darryl Johnston for the most games with a touchdown by a running back duo with 14. So pretty cool moment for David Montgomery. Lions continue to do their thing. St. Brown has 100 yards on the day. Not so cool is the Bengals. They made it happen in garbage time, which is nice from a fantasy standpoint. Even old T. Higgins found his way into the end zone, but brother, I mean, Joel, what are we doing? Like, this is the definition of insanity. Every week, the same thing, and just the same old results.
Yeah, it was first time for everything. At least they scored in garbage time today. But, man, they got to trade for a quarterback. You would think 18 straight drives without a touchdown. Most of those drives are like 5 plays or under, by the way. And then back-to-back chase touchdowns. So he does what he does best, made some plays. So that turned it around in terms of fantasy. He actually won me my main league matchup today. It was awesome. But
there we go.
Besides that, there wasn't too much positive. So if you can sell high on T. Higgins, I don't know how confident I am that they do trade for a quarterback. They're just so loyal to Jake Browning for some reason and have continued to talk him up and how much they trust him despite what he's putting on the field. So they need to trade for somebody. I don't think that it happens, at least not this week, but we'll see how it goes.
They're 2-3. Like, they're not out of it. They're not a 1-4, 0-5 type operation. Like, technically they do have some hope. So we'll see what happens. Of course, maybe they could trade for somebody, but I'm with you that I tend to be skeptical at this point that it happens. But God, I mean, Russ would be better than this. I keep saying Russ is the guy that actually would make some sense with the style of offense that they play, because this offense feels like, not to just go on a tangent about it, but you always would talk about the Cowboys offense where nobody ever seems open, even though they have good players. Even when you're watching this game, outside of the one Jamar Chase, like, he ran free. Again, nobody seems open because the quarterback's not getting the ball out on time. The structure of the offense doesn't do anybody any favors. So, again, it's just a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We got a different co-host on the show today with you, Joel, and I would say results were great. So appreciate you doing this.
Oh, buddy. Thank you.
Jumping in. Like I said, thrown in the fire here, my man. First show ever on the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it's a live Sunday recap. So appreciate you doing this with us, man.
Yeah, a ton of fun. Great talking with you. We're happy to do it again anytime.
Absolutely. My prediction here is that's not the last time you see Joel on this show. But that is going to do it for us today. On Monday, Justin Boone will be back. He joins me for the People's Panic Meter, and I'm sure there's a ton of panic out there in the fantasy streets after week 5. So as always, yes, you can tweet at me when I throw out the post after Sunday Night Football. But if you want to make sure you get to the top of the line, email us, fantasymailbag@yahoosports.com. Voice memos and videos are encouraged, and you guys have actually been crushing it with the videos this year. So would encourage more and more of you guys to send in videos because they've been great. It's been super fun to integrate you guys into the show. Really cool, especially the one last week we had about BTJ with the better podcasting setup than me. That was pretty impressive. So definitely send in all your voice memos, or if you just want to write out your feelings, that's fine too. Just try to get them in before 2 p.m. Eastern so we can actually get them onto the show. Get those submissions in 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday as we go live, 5 p.m. on YouTube. Until then, we are out.